Of the over 3,000 lives lost to suicide in Australia each year, approximately 75% are men. Most of us listening today have possibly been touched by suicide in one way or another. Today, our guest, Lisa Cartledge, has a remarkable story about the experiences related to suicide in her life. She is president of Beechworth to Bridge Walks. Lisa walks and talks to keep moving forward, to stay connected, and to smash the stigma of suicide. Welcome, Lisa. Great to have you have a chat with us this morning at Monday Matters.
Good morning, and thank you. Nice to be here.
And coming live from beautiful, historic Beechworth.
I am.
Lisa, you, to say the least, you've been incredibly impacted by suicide in your life. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. I have. So when my uncle took his life in the early 70s, and back then, you just didn't talk about it. And I probably, I was born in 68. So, I knew that Uncle Freddie was here and then he wasn't. And we never really spoke about that. Fast forward to 1986 and my father died by suicide. And so that was the second person in my world. I was just shy of 18. Fast forward again, 2014, and my husband of 25 years took his life. So, yeah, 3 people very close to me. Yeah.
It's been a remarkable story in terms of you being, of all people on this planet, who know far too well what it's been like, the impact of suicide.
Yeah, it's I do, I do, and there's a stigma that surrounds it that has been there for years and years, and we're slowly chipping away at it to sort of create more understanding and remove that stigma and enable people to grieve.
Yeah. So following on from that, in the 30 years since losing your father, you've lived inside these walls of silence, as you're saying, the stigma and the shame that society has built around those impacted by suicide. This must have been an incredibly challenging time for you. Can you tell us what you've done with that and how you've unpacked it?
Yeah, so when my father died by suicide, as I said, I was very aware that you just don't talk about it. You'd have conversations growing up and, somebody would say, oh, what does your dad do? You say, oh, my dad passed away. And so the question always comes after that, oh, how did he die? He died by suicide. Right in that moment, people lose eye contact. They look at their toes. They don't know what to say. They're uncomfortable. And you don't have the chance to talk about that person remember them in any way because everybody's awkward. And so slowly but surely you just avoid those conversations and you just unfortunately say nothing. And that's where I was at right up until 2014.
So how did you respond then to the elephant in the room?
Yeah, I guess it was more about my kids. So I have 3 adult children, and they had a beautiful relationship with their father, and I wanted them to be able to remember and talk about Dad in every which way. We're not about putting him on a pedestal. Gosh, no. Talk about his quirky ways, his silly ways, his grumpy ways, whatever, but be allowed to talk about Dad without feeling embarrassed or ashamed. So just to be allowed to remember. And so I told them, we're gonna talk about this, and we're gonna look people dead in the eye, and we're gonna say, oh, Sean did this or Dad did this, and always keep his memory alive. And so just creating conversation. Yeah.
So talking about creating conversation, what type of things are you now doing in your life to do that and to bring about this awareness and support for those who have been impacted by suicide?
Yeah. So initially, I knew I wanted to do something, and I just wanted to hit it head on, basically, and let that elephant, set that bastard free, is how we refer to the elephant in the room. And so I organised a walk to Sydney. I created a committee, invited friends and colleagues who I knew had either suffered, been impacted by suicide, or suffered their own mental ill health. So we started walking to Sydney, and we purposely chose to go up the Olympic Highway through all the little country towns, so that we would get to little country pubs and we would have a meal, and people would say, "Who are you? What are you doing? Why do you all have these shirts with elephants on them and caps?" And so then we'd say, "Oh, we're actually walking to raise awareness and remove the stigma around suicide." Initially, people were like, "Oh, okay," bit of silence. But then, we're sitting there, they sort of relaxed a bit more, and the stories that came out, people started to talk. So it was good. So that's what we do. We just talk.
Now, Lisa, I ran into you and met you March earlier this year when I was riding from Beechworth down to Brighton. You were running at an event, and
That's
there were hundreds of people that were on that track, which, and I thought, my goodness, something very special is going on here. Tell us about the feedback that you get from the participants. I mean, I'm sure that they come from a variety of different backgrounds in one way or another, but somehow they've been impacted by suicide. But yeah, the feedback you receive from them.
Yeah, so each year we have been walking from Beechworth to Bright over 3 days, and we've got people who have been return walkers, who have suffered loss to suicide, and they see it as a safe place. We're just walking side by side. It's not a fun run. It's not a marathon. It's just a comfortable walking pace where you can just walk and talk. And we have people who say that they're so looking forward to just coming and chatting, about their loved one that they've lost. It's not a counselling session. It's just a chance to have a chat, remember, laugh, cry. Some people choose to walk in silence in their own thoughts, and that's okay too. Yeah.
So I can imagine though, like walking in such a beautiful area, and you're walking alongside people with similar journeys, similar stories. Just the fact that they're able to have, as you say, that chat and that walk. Is there a healing process in that whole thing that you're doing by having that chat and that walk with people?
100%, 100%. To be able to just, talk about your loved one, and, when some people bring photos, "Oh, this is when my son, my husband, my father, my brother, my sister, this is when this happened," so we share photos, especially when they're return walkers. So, we wrap our arms around each other especially on day one, when you haven't seen each other for a year. And it's like, "Oh, so good to see you. And, how have you been? And how's your grieving process? And, where are you at now?" And, it's just, it's a really good camaraderie. There's new walkers, there's repeat walkers. Yeah.
Mm. Now, Lisa, there'll be a lot of people listening to this today, and I'm just wondering if you could give any advice with regard to any warning signs for someone who could be a potential person to go down the path of suicide, something that we might be able to pick up on, and if we do, then maybe what type of action we could possibly take to support them.
You know what? That's such a hard question, because it's so hard to know. If I talk about my husband, he was a builder by day and a musician by night. He was the life of the party. He was happy. He never suffered depression. So, what were the signs? He was a bit down. I guess the most important thing that we all need to try to do is recognise if someone's down, to just say, "Are you okay?" The thing is, they may not always tell us that they are or they aren't. It's very hard to pick, I believe. A good friend of mine who's a GP, she said to me that, in simple terms, we have this positive and negative battery in our brain, and more often than not, the positive is in charge, and it's the one. but for whatever reason, it goes flat. And no matter how much, exercise you do, good living, all of that, until you recognize that your positive is flat, and seek help and, get the chemical balance right again, it's really hard. So I'm not the person. I don't know. I guess it's just important to say, are you okay, and
Mm,
seek help.
mm.
Yeah.
I can't but help think the events that you are running must have a remarkable impact on people, to see them out there walking and talking and encouraging one another. And that's literally been hundreds and hundreds of people
Yes.
over current times. Um, I'm just thinking in terms of, as I listen to your story, and I think, wow, it's just remarkable that you are still so positive, so forging forward. What is it that's really encouraging you and pushing you on, do you feel?
Um, just I guess for me, like I now talk about my dad. He wasn't an angel either, but I'm allowed to talk about him because he was my dad. So I'm allowed to remember him. And so, guess what pushes me forward is helping others to know that you can talk about your loved one, and then seeing the joy in their eyes when they are talking and remembering, laughing or crying. Also, very important to educate people around the correct language around suicide. We don't actually say committed. We say died by suicide or took their own life, because they didn't actually commit a crime. They were unwell. So it's really important for me just to always correct that language, and that pushes me forward. Yeah.
Mm. Lisa, there's no doubt that you have impacted a lot of people and supported a lot of people who have been touched by suicide. And we're in awe of what you are doing now to facilitate that. And you are really, it's inspirational to hear what you are doing. And it's been a real privilege to have you as a guest here at Monday Matters today. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
If this discussion today has raised any concerns or issues for you, please call Lifeline on 131114.